Say Trump agreed and said, you know what, we'll bring it back. We'll bring the guy back. What do you think should happen with Garcia?
I think the U.S. government should pay him $50 million for pain and suffering at a bare minimum. $50 million for what they did to him. And in addition, they should pass a law that gives him immediate citizenship in this country. We should be begging on our knees for forgiveness for the absolute corruption of the Trump administration to do this kind of shit and to make sure that it is never done again. That's what I think should happen.
Do you think that the Biden administration abused the asylum process, or do you think that we should just allow anybody to come in for any reason?
I don't think we should allow anyone to come in for any reason. Do you realize what kind of straw man this is? This is so insane. The asylum laws provide for what they provide for, and you have to follow the law. Trump doesn't think he has to follow the law. I believe in this country. I love this country. I swore an oath to defend the Constitution, and you guys could wipe your ass with it.
Oh, okay. So you're just a evil person, dude.
I'm evil for defending the Constitution and due process. I'm evil. Hey, folks. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And make sure to check out my newsletter. Information is in the description. Tennessee Frisky, Pisco, SCOTUS asked lower judge to explain what facilitate means. No, they don't, right? Look at another propagandist bootlicker, right? Read what his says, right? SCOTUS asked lower judge to explain what facilitate means. Is that what the highlighted text that I'm showing you says, right? So look at what Tennessee Frisky just put up. It was just a coincidence that I happened to have highlighted at the same time this came up, something that debunked him conclusively directly from the opinion. And look at the quoted word he uses in the super chat. Look at the word he quotes, right? It says facilitate in the quoted, his actual words in the super chat. Now look at the highlighted text that I put there. What is the Supreme Court asking for clarity on? What's the quoted word in the opinion versus what Tennessee Frisky says? Do you start to see what the MAGA propagandist shills, the government bootlickers, the sheep, what they want you to do? They want you to disbelieve your own eyes and just trust the government. The quoted word facilitate in the previous sentence, so there's a quoted word also facilitate here, right? You might say, oh, but there's a quoted word facilitate. This says the order properly tells the government to facilitate. It says we don't need to be given further clarity on facilitate. It's proper. This is proper. No further clarification needed here. It's proper. This is proper. Where do we need? Unclear, right? This is, however, unclear. What's unclear? Is facilitate unclear or is effectuate unclear, right? Well, the fact that they're calling it out effectuate would seem to imply that they're picking one and not the other. And it just so happened that we were on this page when this sheep, right, this believer, this government truster, this bootlicker, gave me $10 to prove him wrong. That the very highlighted sentence that I have here disproves him. So I guess my question for Tennessee Whiskey or Frisky or whatever the is as follows. Do you admit you're wrong? Okay, let me get on stream and talk. Oh yeah, cool. Yeah, come on the Discord, brother.
Okay, so I don't know, where were we at here? I think do you think it's likely that the Supreme Court will compel a return?
I don't know what you mean by that.
Well, my understanding is that this 9-0 unanimous ruling is only unanimous because the word, which I originally thought, and I was wrong, was effectuate or was facilitate. The word is effectuate. That word is broad enough that it can be interpreted from the mere offering of an airplane to the compelling of a return. And because that's so broad, that's why you got a 9-0 ruling. So that's not really the W that you want it to be because both sides can claim the W. As soon as it means something that you want it to, then you're going to have all of the conservative justices going against it, and then all of a sudden we're losing. So I think it's copium to act like this is a win.
It's not copium to act like it's a win for a couple of reasons, and I'll tell you why. The first reason why it's not copium to act like it's a W is it states something that is true and that is not at all something that the government conceded, which is that the court has jurisdiction over this case. That's an unambiguous win. Agreed? Yes or no?
The court has jurisdiction?
Yes, the court has jurisdiction to hear a case in which the individual is not technically under the custody of the United States, although I would say it's constructively under the custody of the United States. The court does not lack jurisdiction to hear this case. That's an unambiguous win, unanimous decision. Agreed?
Okay.
So
sure.
The administration completely lost on its jurisdiction and venue arguments here. Those are unambiguous wins.
Okay.
And now all we're talking about is the remedy. Sorry, that's number one. And number two is unambiguous win. All 9 members of the Supreme Court agree that this was an illegal removal. It should not have been done.
Yep.
So the only thing left is what remedy can the court order. So it's perfectly rational. I want you to say, do you agree with this or do you not agree? It's perfectly rational to look at those 2 big holdings. That is, A, the administration did something illegal, and B, the court has jurisdiction to hear this case about something they did that's illegal. To look at that and see a 9-0 decision and say unambiguous wins. Do you agree with that? That it's rational to view the case, therefore, as an unambiguous win in that sense?
Those are lowercase W's in my opinion. Yes, those are wins, not big deals, not going to win us the midterms.
Hang on a second. Those are big, huge deals because those rulings apply to other cases potentially where people are stuck in Sakat. The jurisdictional argument is not going to go through for the government because the petitioners and plaintiffs are going to be able to cite this case. The argument about the airplanes, you're not able to order airplanes. That argument goes away because the Supreme Court is saying there is jurisdiction here and they do have the power to. Like, the only question is going to be what remedy can the court do? But in terms of jurisdiction and in terms of legality, those are big wins. The court could have turned around and said, sorry, the U.S. courts don't have jurisdiction to hear habeas petitions or these kinds of petitions from someone who is not in a U.S. prison. And that would have been horrible.
Okay.
Yeah. So do you agree?
I'll concede those are big. Okay. I'll concede those are big wins.
Okay. Yeah. So then the last question is like, well, what are the limits to what the court can do here? What does facilitate? And I agree with you, actually. I think it's a good point to raise. You shouldn't say it's pure copium on my behalf because I'm aware of this nuance. And so it's a little insulting for you to say like it's pure copium. There is some going to be play on the joints and argument about what's the upper limit to what facilitate means. What's the lower limit to what facilitate means. Okay. And there is going to be like argumentation on what is what. And so on that, I think we can agree. Even the district court in this case says, I'm willing to be convinced potentially that even just forcing you to request him back would be, maybe that is beyond my power. She seemed a little skeptical of it, but she says, I'm willing to hear argument on it, right? So that would entail potentially some disagreement on the Supreme Court. I don't know how they will rule on that. Maybe I expect there to be probably more disagreement about whether facilitate means or could mean an order that says that you must effectuate. At least. No, I don't mean effectuate. Bitch.
Okay, well, can you explain the difference between these 2 words? I
actually can't because the Supreme Court said, please clarify what you mean by effectuate. And the district court says, I don't want to deal with it. I'm just going to strike it and we'll just have facilitate.
Okay, but don't we still need to know what facilitate means?
Yes, that's what I've been talking about this entire time.
Okay, so that's what I said originally.
You said, no.
You fucking gaslit me.
No, bro. You said that the court said you needed to explain what facilitate meant. The court didn't say that. The court seemed to assume that there are constitutional applications, or at least seem to imply that there's case law. And there is case law about what facilitate means. And so the court did not say that you need to clarify. Now, the fact that the Trump administration is so bad faith that they're going to fight everything about the definition of words ultimately will probably mean that the Supreme Court will be asked to rule on what facilitate means. But what is clear is the court did not say that you need to provide more clarity on what facilitate means. But the ultimate result probably will be that there will be a fight about that.
We were saying the same thing. We're saying the same thing, just me with some extra steps.
No, you said something that you said
it's going to come down to no, Pisco. It's going to come down to what the word facilitate means. That's what I was saying.
So,
and you agree with that? It's going to come down to that word.
No, that's not the only issue, but it will ultimately, I think, the Supreme Court will be asked to rule on whether something is included in facilitate or not. But it's really not, it's actually a little bit different than that. It's not necessarily about what the meaning of the word facilitate is. It's more about the court's power and whether the court, assuming that the facilitate means X thing and includes something, would inclusion of that under the term facilitate be unconstitutional itself? I imagine that there will be a semantic analysis on the word facilitate that will ultimately have to be ruled upon. But what you said was different. What you said was the Supreme Court asked for that to come down. Under normal circumstances, I think we'd have an administration that would be good faith and try to actually bring him back because it's clear that it's illegal what they did and that they have the power to bring him back. But we're dealing with a corrupt pieces of shit. And so I agree, because they're corrupt and ridiculous, we're going to have to, like, they would probably ask for the court to clarify what the term is means, or what the term order means, or what the term district means. So what you're saying is kind of like true, because they'll appeal anything, in the sense that they'll ultimately have to rule on it. The Supreme Court is going to be asked to rule on it. But what you represented with respect to the Supreme Court asking for clarification is not true.
Okay. Well, here's my point. Once the Supreme Court is forced to make a decision on what facilitate means, I think it's going to swing in the conservatives' favor, and Trump's not going to have to bring him back. Do you agree that that's probably the way this is going to play out?
I don't know that. I don't know. I think you're stupid for predicting it.
Why wouldn't this horrible Supreme Court that just gave Trump almost full immunity not give them a favorable definition of facilitate? I mean, this is so obvious.
So
this is why I'm talking about copium. The cope has to stop, dude.
Bro, you're cooked.
Bro,
You're completely cooked.
dude, you're cooked.
You're completely
live
cooked.
in
All right.
reality here. This is not going to go well.
Yeah. So first of all, you don't need to tell me that the Supreme Court is conservative and comes to ridiculous decisions sometimes. I criticize them plenty of times. I never said that I'm so sure that the Supreme Court is going to issue that, like, that the Trump administration has to bring him back. That has never been my position. You're ascribing to me a position that I've never held. In fact, I never said that the Supreme Court
What are we talking about?
I've never said that the Supreme Court is going to force the Trump administration to request him to come back. That's never been my position. That also is a straw man. I've never argued those things. So to the extent that you're ascribing to me a position about what the Supreme Court will rule on those two issues, I'm going to identify the two issues. You seem to imply that I would think that the Supreme Court would rule that requesting or forcing the government to request Abrego Garcia to come back, that's constitutional, that you think that I would think that the Supreme Court, or predict the Supreme Court would say that that's okay. That's issue number one. I have not stated an opinion as to that. I have never claimed that that is likely or not likely. And so to the extent copium, I take copium to be someone who believes something that's clearly not going to be true. But I have not expressed a belief, nor do I have a belief that that's what the Supreme Court, I'm pretty much agnostic on that. I don't know how they'll rule on it. But that's not
being
that's
agnostic
not,
is
that's
copium.
That's not what I take
Being
to be
agnostic
copium.
is copium. You should know. You should know how they're going to rule
until
after watching how they rule.
Actually, you don't.
Agnosticism is cope.
Actually, you don't, because it will probably depend on case law. And actually, if you're being realistic, you need to look at the case law and wait until the briefing occurs on this very issue. And then maybe I can look at the strength of the legal arguments and about the case law that they have to draw upon. And then I can make a better prediction about where they're at. Or when they make certain procedural moves, I can make a better informed prediction. I think you're an idiot if you assume the issue just based on the composition of the court, because that doesn't always give you the right answer. An example of this is when everyone was saying to me, oh, you're coping when you say the administrative stay on this case doesn't indicate where they're going to lie. And now where they are, I mean, now who's coping? I said that the administrative stay isn't an indicator on where the Supreme Court ultimately is going to lie on this issue, and I was right. So I think people who read too much into what the court's going to do just based on their personnel, they're the ones who are being idiots. They're the ones who are being, stupid. The case law's going to matter. The briefing's going to matter. So yeah, I just don't think that you're properly representing my position on any of these issues.
Well, I'll get the Joe Overlord apology forms prepped for you.
Wait.
When
What?
This comes out
So what would be the
unfavorably.
apology? So if the Supreme Court says you have to facilitate, but that does not include forcing the government to request him back, in what sense would I be wrong?
Because you didn't. Because it was obvious that was going to happen all the time, this whole time, and you were agnostic on it. You held out hope.
Would I be wrong? Yes or no?
Yeah, if you would be wrong. Yes.
Wait. So if someone's agnostic about a position, and the position turns out to be one thing versus the other, you would say that person who was agnostic was wrong?
Yes, because you didn't pick the correct thing that was going to happen.
So if someone asks you, is it going to rain tomorrow? And you say, I don't know. And it rains tomorrow. Was that person who said, I don't know, wrong?
If there was 100% chance of rain and we had the science to know that it was going to rain. Yeah, and you were saying, "Oh, I don't know. I don't know if I trust the science of the meteorology." And then you'd be coping. Yes.
Bro,
we know this is going to
happen. This is not good for you. Like what you just said is not good for you. I mean, you're just changing what the term agnostic means. You're just inventing your own language. Maybe that's fine for you or whatever, but this is not what the standard, ordinary usage of those terms means.
It's a dumb tangent.
Wait,
Okay,
no, wait,
let
no,
me
no. The
ask you
tangent,
this.
it's not a tangent because your whole point is you're coping. And so I'm expressing to you why I'm not. So anytime you say something like, oh, you're not addressing the main point or doing one of these things, I'm going to stop you and I'm going to get you to admit that I'm actually not doing something that's a tangent. Your point, the thing you ended your comment was maximum coping or you're coping. And so me addressing my beliefs and whether or not I would be right or wrong is not a tangent. It's addressing the merits of whether or not I believe something, which is relevant to the assessment of whether or not I'm coping. And so you agree, right? That was not a tangent. It was directly relevant to your statement. Do you agree with that?
Yes, it's
Okay.
relevant, but I think the pedantic, the shit we're getting off and is aside from what I want to be talking about, which is how do you think this is going to play out?
Right now, in terms of what specifically the court is going to be able to do with respect to facilitate, I think they're going to be able to order discovery. I think the Supreme Court's probably going to allow that because the Supreme Court seemed to anticipate in their order that they would be forced to, the government would be forced to give updates, right? And so to the extent that a facilitate means to inform fully about the facts and circumstances of what's going on, to have a better picture, I think facilitate will be upheld with respect to that. I think facilitate probably will be upheld with respect to, at a bare minimum, what Pam Bondi says is facilitate, which is to remove domestic barriers. And so I think facilitate will certainly mean what the government admits it means. And so those are two big areas of things where it will certainly cause strife and keep us in the news if the district court is able to conduct and the plaintiffs are allowed to conduct discovery in open court on these administration officials. I think that that's a pressure onto itself. It could get very uncomfortable admissions. I think to the extent that it opens the door for targeted contempt proceedings, not unlike the Boasberg situation, on individual members who either lie or hide things. And so those, I think, will all be encompassed under the facilitate label. And so those are a number of things that fall short of forcing the government to request them back or forcing the government to, stop payment to Bukele that would be captured under the term facilitate. I haven't done the research or briefing on the request aspect or the funding aspect of it. And so I'm agnostic on it and I haven't had an opinion on it. So for you to come into the chat and say you're coping, I think is one, disrespectful and stupid, and you've kind of shown your ass.
Here's what's going to happen, and I think you'll agree with this. Bukele is just not going to give them back, right? Trump's going to say, they got this perfect little catch-22 area where as long as Bukele doesn't want to give him back, then we can't be compelled to take him back, right? And so he'll just be there.
That's certainly possible. Wait. That's certainly possible. I've never said that that's not possible or even the most likely outcome.
Okay.
So under what sense do you take back the notion that I'm coping? I'm the one who's saying that Trump is. If
you think that's a likely scenario, then
I think there's a significant. So I just want to be clear, and I've been consistent about the position throughout the entirety of my online life, but I'll double down and triple down that I think it's a significant chance that happens. When I'm referencing my entire online life, I have said over and over that Trump is willing and able and has directly violated court orders, either the explicit text of them or the spirit of them. And so I've warned specifically about this outcome in various videos, various content streams, various tweets that said what happens when the Supreme Court says something or the Trump administration plays fast and loose. What's the enforcement mechanism? That was one of my main arguments for saying that Trump shouldn't be elected. And so for you to act as though I already have in my mind that it's certain that Kilmar's coming home. Kilmar might be dead. So I never once took the position that I know he's going to come home or the government's going to do what it can to bring him home. In fact, I'm pretty pessimistic about this administration's willingness to comply with the law or to do basic moral acts. And so I have never said that we're certainly to have a good outcome here. We don't control government. We don't control the executive branch. And so I think there's a huge chance that he doesn't come home or is dead. But you assume something. You assume something.
You got to understand that for the last 4-6 years, it's been nonstop. But by liberal pundits, the walls are closing in. Oh, it's going to happen now. We're getting them. Trump, it's finally over for him. And then it's just W after W after W. And losers
I
like
can't
fucking
speak.
David Pac-Man pretending
I
that
can't
it's
speak
all
to
over
everyone.
for Trump.
I
And
can't
fucking,
speak to that.
Okay, I'm sorry you got lumped in with them, but we're
Okay.
traumatized
I'll
by
take
that
your apology.
shit. So when you guys jump out and say, "Oh, this is a huge win,"
It is a
it's
huge
hard
win.
to take
Wait,
you
you
seriously.
agree it's a huge win because even just the unanimous decision of the Supreme Court saying that what they did is unlawful, saying that there's jurisdiction, those are actually huge wins. It keeps the pressure
Yes,
on.
these
It gives
are big wins. Yes, and
okay.
obviously, I don't know. I didn't. And where is that nuance, by the way? I'm not hearing that anything. I'm just hearing the walls are closing in. So like,
So
this is good.
Everyone is the senators are saying he's violating the court order. They're using that rhetoric. There's absolutely consciousness of the fact that he is potentially in a conflict with the Supreme Court. There's awareness about this, whether or not they're making the specific nuance that the court will or won't force the government to request him to come back. I can't speak to that. Some people aren't as the weeds as I am. I'm pretty in the weeds on this stuff. I read all this shit and I try to have an informed opinion. And I can't speak to everyone who is spreading copium. People often accuse me of spreading copium, that the walls are closing in on Trump. I've never done that. I never thought it was a foregone conclusion that he was going to be found guilty in New York. I predicted that he would win in the disqualification case, even though people say, oh, Pisco predicted that Trump would be disqualified. I never did that at all. I predicted he would win that case. In fact, I was very adamant that the case against Trump in terms of the criminal case, that those be done as quickly as possible. But I was, not sure that they would be done in time. I was not sure that he would be found guilty. I was never sure that the Supreme Court was going to rule that Trump had no immunity. I thought that they would take the Amy Coney Barrett approach. I didn't know they would go as far as they did. But I was never of the opinion that it was a foregone conclusion he would be convicted on those situations. I was never of the opinion that Donald Trump would lose the election. In fact, of all my Live and Learn co-hosts, I was the one who said that this is always very, very close. Trump can absolutely win the election. And for years and years and years, I was warning about Trump and saying, he's a threat. He's a threat. You must take him seriously, and warning the people, please don't vote for this person. Please follow the law. And so I just don't take seriously people who say that, I'm part of this crowd of people saying the walls are closing in, because I'm not.
You did better than Hutch. I'll give you that.
Oh yeah, I'm the kind of boy. Yeah. But no, I appreciate that, bro. But just calibrate your language with me, all right? You're talking to the king, bro. You're talking to the guy who I get my ducks in a row. And if I'm wrong about something, I'm happy to admit it. I'm happy to admit if I'm wrong about something. But when you say pure copium, I'm not a coper, bro.
But am I going to get your attention if I don't put pure copium or call you regard?
Absolutely. If you donate, if you donate money to me, I almost always put it up on the screen. And
that's true.
Yeah. So I think if you had not put that in there, I wouldn't have taken as heated an exception to it. But absolutely, if people, I've been inviting random people on the stream all the time. I'm not scared of people. I talk to people, and I think these are good conversations because I think that oftentimes this is the area where we have constructive dialogue. And just to be clear, there is a core good point to what you're saying, right? The core good point to what you're saying is the Trump administration is going to force the Supreme Court's hand in determining the upper and lower limits of facilitate. That's true. It's not what you said, but it is true that they'll have to do that. And that's a good point for people to realize and recognize that it's not a foregone conclusion that facilitate will mean what you think facilitate means. And that's something that's important. And so I'm glad I had the conversation because it gives us an opportunity to say that even though you were dead wrong.
Can I ask you one last question?
Yeah.
Concerned about the fact that it's now coming out that this dude, Garcia, basically beat his wife.
No.
And had a restraining order.
So
that literally, that's true. That came out, and I feel like we're playing. I know he still has due process, but I feel like we're playing into the Republicans' trap now of trying to bring back a woman beater, and now we're gonna screw ourselves in midterms. What do we do about that?
Am I concerned? When you say "am I concerned," do you mean am I concerned about the optics of it?
Yes, the optics of it, exactly.
Potentially,
we're kind of fucked.
Potentially, but not if the Democrats are strict on their messaging and know what they're saying and are able to be nimble and say the right things. Now, so just to be clear about what I think about that, this is temporary restraining orders or restraining orders in general. Domestic restraining orders are not. Oftentimes they're done ex parte, which means with only one side presenting proof or evidence or something. It could be the case that there were domestic situations in the household, or that even he did he hit her or something, or that he pushed her or something. That happens to literally thousands and thousands of Americans. Obviously, it's condemnable if it occurred. I don't take it just because it's in an ex parte filing or just because a restraining order was granted. I don't take that necessarily to be fact or be true, right? It would be an incredibly not thoughtful person to see one filing, not know the full story, and jump to conclusions. And so but the more important and critical point is the mere fact that this occurred, even if it were true that there was a domestic situation and that he were a culpable party to it, doesn't change anything. It doesn't change the requirement for us to make this an important case, because this is an important case. This is a situation where the Trump administration blatantly violated the law. And the fact that the Trump administration is trying to change this whole conversation to be about whether or not he was a good or bad person, they're changing the bases of whether he is like a person that's upstanding or not upstanding or a member of MS-13, and they're trying to change the basis for why he should be removed. First, it's because he's MS-13, then he's a terrorist, and now he's because he's a wife beater or something. It shows to me that they don't have a clue about what's going on. They don't know who this person is, really. And to the extent that he turns out to be more of a threat, like let's say that it turns out that he actually is this big member of MS-13. Well, then why did the Trump administration release him in 2019? And they still have to contend with that. And so regardless of all of that stuff, it's important for us to bring attention to it, because there actually is a direct link between this action, even if you were a member of MS-13, even if you were a wife beater, even if you didn't have a domestic situation, even if it's true that the domestic situation is as presented by the conservative media, we actually do need to pay attention to this nonetheless, because it relates to a potential humongous loophole in due process and rights for even Americans. And Trump is on camera saying he wants to put Americans in caught. And so we have no choice but to pay attention to this case, even if he turns out that he's more unsavory than some people expected.
I think they're going to go for an American citizen next, and they're going to handpick a pedophile, or maybe that dude who raped all the gymnasts. He's going to go into the El Salvador camp, and he's going to force Democrats to be calling for him to come back, and then it's over for us. Smart, they'll do something like that.
Yeah, but like, what would you recommend? So if they deport a U.S. citizen who's done a depraved act,
I don't know. That's checkmate. I have no recommendation.
It's not checkmate. No. It's not checkmate. You go all in on due process.
You have to stand up. You have to stick up for the pedo. You have to. But then you lose everything. You're not going to win the American people with that. You have to defend him. But we're.
So I actually don't believe that. If you look at the polling here, people don't like this stuff. People don't like these kinds of deportations, and people can be convinced. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy if you say it's all that the American people won't understand. They won't understand. But we just need to be stronger than them, and we need to be disciplined in our messaging about why this matters. And I think a lot of Democrats are understanding it, and they are connecting it to U.S. citizens, and they are connecting it to other stuff. And so I'm not seeing as much disappointing messaging on this as I expected. If anything, I'm seeing far too much reluctance to get into this issue from people. And I think that once individuals understand what's at stake here, they will understand that, it doesn't matter whether this person is unsavory or not. In this case, by the way, though, on the specific domestic matter, right? That it's all just a fugazi. These people don't actually care about whether someone has an accusation, whether it's credible or not, of domestic abuse, right? That's like, think about Andrew Tate, think about Trump himself. And so we need to be able to power through and get to our messaging and not be so worried about what they're going to say. We need to be worried about what we're going to say and our active messaging, and be on offense instead of worrying about being on defense.
If we lose lots of seats this midterms after all of the fascism that we see growing, would you be convinced to leave the country?
I'm never going to abandon this country, except for like a nuclear bomb situation or something like that. I'm not going to give up on America. This is my home. We're going to fight for it. We're in it all the way. We're in it completely all the way. And you, my fellow patriot, my fellow patriots in the chat, I'll be here. And I want you to be here too. And together we'll overcome the fascist movement in this country, or die trying.
All right, good times.
All right, bro.
Good talk.
Have a good one, man. Much love. Bye-bye. Yeah, nothing has to be done with this bag of shit until SCOTUS. That's a more perfect union. The fucking dumbass boomer. Hey, boomer, why don't you come on the fucking stream? You talk a big game in my fucking chat or my replies. Doors open, dipshit. Can you hear me?
Oh, I can hear you.
Yeah, why are you talking so much shit in the replies, dude? You sound unhinged in my Twitter.
No, because your whole point, right, is that you're so pissed off about everything there is a difference. There's a legal difference between the term you would like to say that causes impeachable conduct, facilitate, versus effectuate. And the reason why the SCOTUS kicked it back down there is because they wanted the district court judge to actually define or clarify what they mean by the term.
By which term?
Well, first of all, a district court judge has no authority
by which
to require the President of the United States on effectuate. Well, the district court order said, I believe, used both terms.
It did. Which one did the Supreme Court ask the district court to clarify?
To clarify what they meant and also give deference to the administration.
Which term?
With respect to
the Supreme Court asked the district court to clarify?
They asked to clarify the intent of effectuate.
Right. So they didn't ask the court to resolve what the term facilitate meant. So when you said that, you were wrong.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, but still, you think, right, because the district court judge says, I want you to bring him back, that they can compel an Article 2 authority to affect foreign policy. No district court in this country has that power.
I did not say that at all. No. You're representing. No, you're misrepresenting what I said. You're misrepresenting what the court says. I never said that the district court has powers, to affect diplomacy in this kind of way. I never said that. In fact, I have been abundantly fair in my coverage of this entire thing. I said from the start, I gave the administration their due with respect to their arguments. When I went on breaking points and said, listen, the government has some tangible arguments here because there are sensitivities. I can think of plenty of things that would be unconstitutional for a district court to do. So can the district court, by the way. So did the Supreme Court, by the way. The district court actually said, not that I can do anything I want. The district court said, I will entertain that maybe I can't even order Trump to ask Bukele to do stuff. That doesn't sound like a court that's insistent that I can control the diplomacy. She said that.
Yeah, but people on the left are just all up in a conniption about this guy being over there. Yeah, it was a paperwork issue.
But it was not just a paperwork issue.
It was the Biden administration FBI that failed to challenge the withholding order. It was stupid.
What are you talking about?
Gave up on that.
So you're blaming you're blaming the Biden administration for this?
No. Hey, stop! Don't cut me the off. Okay, I mean it's your channel, but let me get the words I want to say out, and then you can bitch slap me all you want. Okay. He was given a final order of removal that had a withholding order. Get rid of him, but you can't send him back to El Salvador. Okay? That's what that was. The Biden administration didn't challenge that withholding order. It didn't mean that he wasn't under a deportation order. He was still under a deportation order since 2019.
Why would the Biden administration challenge the withholding order?
Because why would they? Because they want to get rid of him. So first of all,
why?
You want to say, you and everybody else wants to say that Garcia was not a gang member. But he explicitly asked the court to not send him back to El Salvador because he feared for his life from a quote unquote rival gang.
That's not true.
You have to be in a gang before you can be afraid
you're just
of a
ignorant.
rival gang.
You just don't know. You don't even know the basis of his withholding application. You're getting basic things wrong. And so I want to go through it because you're wrong about that. But you started by saying the Biden administration should have challenged the withholding order. But that would assume that the withholding order was somehow improper or shouldn't have been done. And it would apply just as equally to the Trump administration which initially granted the withholding, right? In 2019, it wasn't
The Trump administration ceded the point that it was an administrative error that they sent him to El Salvador.
No, that's not what I'm talking about. No, I'm talking about what you're. No, stop. I have to stop you because I'm not talking about what they just did right now. I'm not talking about this right now. You said the Biden administration should have challenged the withholding order. I don't know why they should have. I don't know what's wrong with the withholding order. And if anything, if the Biden administration should have done it, shouldn't the Trump administration never have granted the withholding and then when it was granted, appealed it or tried to get rid of it? This happened in 2019. Well, if they thought he was an MS-13 member in 2019, why did they give him work permits? That's Trump gave him work permits. That's Trump who didn't appeal the withholding order. You don't have an answer to that. Admit it.
Well,
be honest.
Look, the guy, there's reports that now there's more stuff that's coming out, right?
No, I want you to address what I just said. I want you to address what I just said. You don't be too egomaniacal not to just admit that you don't have an answer to what I just said and move on.
It's pretty rich for you to call anybody egomaniacal.
But you don't have a response to what I just said. You started off by saying Biden should have challenged the withholding order. I present to you the fact that withholding was granted by the Trump administration, and that if they thought he was an MS-13 member in 2019 when it was granted, why didn't they do something about it then? And why did they give him work permits and let him loose on the country? That's the Trump administration in 2019.
It's a fair question.
Yeah,
but you don't have a failure. Yeah. It's a failure. Chris Wray was still the FBI director under Trump. Okay.
Yeah, Trump nominated him.
Chris Wray. It's Chris Wray and the Department of Justice. Okay, that chose not to
nominated him.
And at the end, say again.
That's a Trump appointee. Chris Wray was appointed by Trump after he fired Comey. Do you forget this?
No, I don't. No, I don't. No, I don't forget it. I'm telling you that Chris Wray didn't have any intention of trying to do anything that would have been in alignment with what Trump wanted.
This is not in the FBI's purview. How would this be in the FBI's purview? What does Chris Wray have to do with this? It has nothing to do with this. DHS should have done something about it.
It was Chris Wray's FBI, okay, that instructed Tennessee law enforcement authorities to let Garcia go when he had 7 illegals in his vehicle, and he was traveling without a driver's license, by the way, which is a crime.
We're not
it's a misdemeanor, but it's a crime.
We're not talking about that.
He was on his way. Hang on. He was on his way from Texas to Maryland. He was trafficking people. Bro. He had 2 orders, domestic orders of protection, okay, for beating the shit out of his girlfriend, now his wife.
Bro, I can address every single thing you're saying, and I'm willing to do it.
Well,
and I'm willing to
actually, you know what? God. We can go around it. We can go around in circles here, and you can make your legal premise. Okay, I concede the fact that you can make your legal premise. What I really wanted to ask you, sort of face to face as it were, is say Trump agreed and said, you know what, we'll bring it back. We'll bring the guy back. What do you think should happen with Garcia?
I think that he should be able to live here, because I think the withholding.
Okay.
Wait. Let me finish what I'm saying. Yeah, wait. Wait. Let me finish what I'm saying. Yes, I think yes.
Getting clemency and then a path to citizenship.
So I want to be clear about what I think. I'm going to tell you what I think. All right. I think that he should be granted withholding from. I think the withholding removal, which is still in place, should not be attempted to be lifted. I think the U.S. government should pay him $50 million for pain and suffering at a bare minimum. The U.S. government should compensate Mr. Abrego Garcia at a bare minimum $50 million for what they did to him. And in addition, they should pass a law that gives him immediate citizenship in this country. So grave, such an infringement on liberties, so horrible what they did was that we should be begging on our knees for forgiveness for the absolute corruption of the Trump administration to do this kind of shit and to make sure that it is never done again. That's what I think should happen.
That is exactly what I expected from you, because you don't think that any illegal aliens should be sent out.
No, I don't think. I don't think that.
That's right.
No. I'm denying you. No. Shut the up, you dumb piece of boomer shit. I didn't say no. I don't think there should be no deportation. I said no. You're wrong that I think that there should be no deportations. I think there should be deportations. I voted for Biden in 2020. I voted for Kamala Harris in 2024. They proposed a bill that would have increased the amount of deportations. I supported them, notwithstanding the fact that Biden was doing. Yes, it would have. And listen, if
they created CBP-1, and they reduced the number of people that were crossing the border because they were flying them the in.
At a bare minimum, you agree that Biden did
500,000 people. So they flew in and they put them in small rural communities. And they gave them, gave them work permits.
So you agree when you're pending asylum petition that people with pending asylum petitions have the legal right to request an EAD, an employment authorization document? Do you agree that they have that legal right? Wait. Can you answer that question first, actually? Do you agree that people who have a pending asylum petition can apply for an EAD? Yes or no?
The way the law is currently written, yes. Okay. But
so should we follow the law or not? Should we follow the law or not?
Let's do this as a back and forth, okay? Do you think that the Biden administration abused the asylum process, or do you think that we should just allow anybody to come in for any reason?
I don't think we should allow anyone to come in for any reason. Do you realize what kind of straw man this is? This is so insane. Now we're talking about just my general take. And as for asylum, because I'm not a little bitch. I won't run away from questions. You're running scared to try to get from the specifics of this case to talk about my general take on the Biden administration immigration policy. That's all you guys can do is deflect. But I'm not a little bitch, so I'll answer your question. I think the asylum process has some flaws in it, but that's not because of anything the Biden administration was doing. It's because the asylum laws provide for what they provide for, and you have to follow the law. Trump doesn't think he has to follow the law. Trump thinks he can just willfully disregard the law, and that has been made evident, and that's the difference between me and you and him, in that I believe in this country, I love this country, I swore an oath to defend the Constitution, and you guys could wipe your ass with it.
Okay. So, if I believe that the asylum laws that existed when Trump was in his first term were 75,000 asylees per year. And in order to claim asylum, there's a very specific set of processes that you have to do that. You can't be from Guatemala and then come up to the United States border and claim asylum.
Yes,
you have to do it in the first safe country. No, you can't. First safe country.
Yes, you can.
First safe country. It's in the law.
If you come up from Guatemala and you pass safe countries, are you legally allowed to?
Cannot pass.
Excuse me. Let me finish the question. Every single thing you've been wrong about. So let me finish the question. If you come from Guatemala and pass through safe countries, are you allowed legally to apply for asylum?
The law. I tell you what. Put a pin in that one. I'm gonna cite the specific.
Okay. No, I'm going to tell you, yes, you can apply. You might have a non-meritorious claim because of the safe country situation.
92% of the people.
Oh my God.
98% of the people that claim asylum have unmeritorious claims.
Are you using ChatGPT or AI?
I'm not using any.
What are you using?
98.
What's your source?
A published fact.
What's your source?
News reports.
What?
It's a published fact.
Name the source.
The majority. Well, okay. Give me a minute. I'll look up the source.
Wait, what did you just read from? What did you just read from?
I'm not reading from anything.
So what did you said I had to put a pin in it to look something up.
Well, I'm going to look up that number. I'm going to get the exact number. Okay. The vast majority of asylum claims are false. They're denied.
When you say vast majority, what do you think?
Over 90%.
It's not true.
It's closer to 95, 98%. But I'll look the exact number.
No, that's not true. The majority of claims are denied.
What's your site? Well, then cite your number. Where did that come from?
It's about a third. It's about a third, or it's about 25.
One third.
It's like 25 or so percent, something like that.
So, what's your source for that?
I know it.
No, that's as stupid as you like ripping on me for not knowing the exact number.
DHS stats.
Which stat?
Their stats on granted asylum claims over amounts of petitions. Why the does this matter? Why are you grilling me on stats?
Because you're the one that asked me to cite stuff.
Well, because you pulled a number that was so preposterously wrong. It's not the case. And I don't know what that has to do with Abrego Garcia.
Garcia was an illegal alien. He crossed the illegal. He shouldn't be here anyway. Right? So if Trump were somehow to magically give in to what you want, that's not enough. Right? Because the guy's still under an order of deportation. So he could be sent somewhere else. Where are we going to send him? He's been told some stupid immigration judge goes, well, you could throw him away. You can get rid of him. Okay, but you just can't send him back to El Salvador because he might get hurt by a rival gang member.
So let's address that. Where did you get rival gang member from?
That was his claim.
It wasn't. Why do you think that? Because you follow some dipshit accounts that spread propaganda and infect your mind and make you stupid?
Come on, we both know I'm not stupid. But that's, you're just hyperbolic, dude.
Well, you get everything wrong. I mean, that's wrong. It's not. No one said it's because of rival gang. That's stupid as fuck. It's because his mom had a fucking restaurant, and the gangs were like attacking the restaurant and threatening him. He was like 16, and so he left the country because it was a big problem. And you're a heartless piece of shit. You're a heartless piece of shit. And you said it was a rival gang because you've been.
Then if they were thinking that, in 2016, why didn't they apply for asylum then?
He didn't cross in 2016, dumbass. Why do you just pull random shit out of your ass? He crossed in 2011.
His brother.
He crossed in 2011. So he crossed.
His brother lives in Maryland. That's where he went, right? That's what
he crossed. He crossed in 2011,
illegal.
and he paid the consequence. He paid the consequence for not applying for asylum. In that, after a year, you're not eligible for asylum anymore. And so he wasn't eligible for asylum, and so he had to apply for withholding. And when he applied for withholding, it's a higher standard, and he met the higher standard. And it was a Trump immigration judge that granted it, and a Trump DHS and Justice Department that didn't do shit about it and gave him work permits.
Do you deny that he has 2 domestic violence orders against him, or domestic protection orders?
What the does that have to do with what I just said?
Because he's an illegal immigrant.
Is this just
right? He's an illegal alien who violated laws. He drove without a driver's license. You can't do that. You're not supposed to violate any laws. If you're on a visa or
yeah,
if you're
that's
on
a good point. So just like Trump's not supposed to violate the law, right? Like just like Trump's not supposed to violate the law. Just like Trump.
But of course, that was not going to happen under Biden, right? Because they didn't prosecute anybody.
You think the Biden administration prosecutes driving without a license? You think Biden could do that?
When the reports get made and the federal government doesn't do anything about it, that's a problem with the State Department.
Wait, do you think that Biden could have? Do you think Biden could have prosecuted? Wait. Let me. I just want to make sure I'm understanding. Wait. I just want to make.
What branch of government is responsible for deportations?
The federal government.
What branch of government is responsible?
The federal government, the executive branch.
Oh, that's right. So if Biden's not deporting people, whose fault is that?
What do you mean? Whose fault? Right? Whose fault?
It's a failure of the administration to faithfully execute the laws of the United States.
So Trump is supposed to wait. So I just want to be clear. So Biden is supposed to. So
you turned a blind eye. You turned a blind eye for 4 years under the Biden.
I just want to make sure. Don't run. You know what's coming. That's why you're running. So you. I want to get this right. And you just. I just want to get this. I just want to get this right. So you think Biden should have deported this guy for an uncharged traffic violation and an uncharged domestic situation?
The FBI.
Wait, can I get a yes or no to that?
No, you can't do that, right?
Okay, so is it Biden's fault? Is it Biden's fault?
Mean it didn't happen.
Is it Biden's fault?
Biden FBI, right? Yes, he is. The buck stops with him. Chris Wray said, told the Tennessee law enforcement authorities to let Garcia go, even though they suspected, because there were 7 illegal aliens in the vehicle with him. Okay, on their way from Texas to Maryland, they suspected him of human trafficking at that point, and they were told by the FBI to let him go.
Is it a crime? Is it a crime to Is it a crime to transport illegal aliens across the country?
Yes.
So you agree, so you agree that Greg Abbott committed a crime by transporting illegal immigrants, right?
No, because the government has authority that individuals don't.
So wait, why can the Texas government transport illegal aliens but not a human being? Explain that.
Because they were under the control. They were under the control and auspices of a government branch.
Oh yeah. What's the citation for that, Professor?
I don't need to give you a citation.
Yeah, you just pulled it out of your. You pulled it out of your. You pulled it out of your sack. Why don't you say that that's the case?
So when the people got sent up to Martha's Vineyard, and then the people in Martha's Vineyard had them all removed again, well, that would have been just as illegal, wouldn't it? Using your logic.
I don't agree with the stupid proposition that driving with illegal aliens is a crime. That's stupid.
You cannot shelter or harbor illegal aliens in this country.
Give me the citation for that.
Really? That's the hill you're going to die on?
I don't know that to be the case.
Okay, hang on. Let me find the citation.
That it's a crime to live in a residence with a illegal immigrant?
I didn't say that.
To travel with them?
It's illegal to transport them for the purposes of bringing them into the interior of the country.
Oh, that's different.
I don't know why he
that's different. Wait, so one is trafficking them across the border. Yeah, that's probably a crime, but that's not what is alleged to happen.
Illegal.
That's not what's alleged to happen.
It's illegal in most states to transport illegal aliens across state lines.
Prove it.
It's human trafficking, dude.
Wait, prove it.
What?
Prove that a state can criminalize whether or not you drive an illegal immigrant across their border. Prove that.
Okay, hang on.
Don't go to ChatGPT.
I'm not going to ChatGPT. Oh, here you go.
Yeah.
Title 8 U.S. Code, Section 1324. Bringing in or harboring illegal aliens. Federal law makes transporting undocumented immigrants a crime. Federal law that makes it a crime to transport or attempt to transport undocumented non-citizens within the U.S. But it's meant to cover narrow situations and everyday situations like offering a ride.
Yeah.
It's clear that Garcia wasn't just offering them a ride. He was taking them across multiple state lines.
Okay.
He was in clear violation of the federal law. Would you concede that?
No, I wouldn't. No, I wouldn't. Of course I wouldn't.
No, you won't. The actual law that I just gave you, you're saying isn't really applicable.
I think that it's not applicable to that circumstance, and that the facts don't meet out whatever the standard is there.
He literally brought people from Texas to Maryland.
Okay, what if he didn't know they were illegal immigrants?
And the FBI.
What if he didn't know they were illegal immigrants? What if he didn't know?
Yep.
Would it be a crime?
Okay. Well,
would it be a crime?
That's a what if.
Would it be? Wait, who's the burden on to allege that they did a crime? Who's the burden on? Is it on you?
Of the police? Look, the Tennessee law enforcement authorities knew that he was they were illegal.
How?
Because the FBI.
If he knew, why are you so allergic? Because you know you're getting whipped around. You know you're getting fucking.
I'm not getting whipped around,
yeah,
dude. I am not getting whipped around on this one. You just said, "Ooh, cite the law that says it's illegal." I cite the law.
You're like, oh, it's very narrow. Oh, it's extremely narrow. It doesn't cover circumstances like normal driving around. It's for more.
It doesn't if you picked up an illegal alien at a Walmart and you took him to a CVS drugstore, you just gave him a lift. That's what they mean when they say.
So prove that.
Offering so
under that standard, prove that he didn't just do that.
Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. He picked them up at a Home Depot in Texas, and he dropped them off at a CVS in Maryland.
You're confusing a bunch of shit, bro.
That's the idiocy that you want to try to string out.
Yeah. So it's not on me to disprove that he did a crime. It's on you to prove that he did a crime. And either way, it wouldn't be Biden enforcing that.
There's prima facie case evidence, right? But the FBI instructed Tennessee law enforcement to let him go. And let the other illegal aliens go, because that was the policy of the Biden administration.
Or maybe, and just think about this, right?
Maybe.
But
I'm telling you what happened.
Maybe it's the case that these people that you say are illegal immigrants, maybe all of them have pending asylum applications. In fact, maybe they all have employment authorization documents. And maybe
so what? So
is that possible? Is that possible?
I think he was doing it out of the kindness of his own
Wait a second.
heart.
So is it possible that all these people who are undocumented have pending asylum applications with employment authorization documents? Is that possible?
No.
It's not possible.
I would be willing to put a paycheck on it that those people were all I guarantee you they were all gotaways.
You guarantee it. You just said you guarantee it. You don't know who's
because the government was moving these people around. They were giving them plane tickets. They were giving them bus fare. They were giving them EBT.
That's what Abbott was doing. That's what he was doing. That's what DeSantis was doing.
Well, then I'm sorry. Why didn't they get on one of DeSantis's buses or one of Abbott's buses to go to Maryland? Why did they rely on a gang member?
Oh my God.
Look, two immigration courts said the guy was a gang member.
They didn't.
Okay. No, he did. And Garcia never challenged it, by the way.
So you're wrong about everything. Why do you think you're right about this?
I'm not wrong about that.
You are wrong about that.
Not wrong.
Do you really want to go through it again so I can disprove you one more time?
It's been widely reported. It's been widely reported. Even on your news channel, CNN.
No. So the propagandist you listen to,
the
propagandist you listen to lie, and they say things that aren't true. But if you actually read the opinion of the IJ, it would instantly disprove what you say.
You're talking about the IJ that did the withholding order.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that IJ, in making that withholding order, said that she found it to be very thin at best for him to be considered a gang member. But
Garcia you're wrong about that language. You're wrong about that, sir. I don't know if you're like drinking or you're just what's going on. That language about that language about thin it comes from the Fourth Circuit this month. It's not from the language in the IJ. You're just like conflating things that you're reading, and you're just all over the place.
Yeah, I can't pronounce it. You're right. I can't pronounce the judge's name. That's just
no. It's not. No, it's not about pronunciation. So you said that the IJ said that it was a thin rationale.
I just said I couldn't pronounce the judge's name in the case that you're referencing. But you're correct.
I don't know what pronunciation has to do with it. You misidentified the court that was making that saying that language, and so that just goes to show you that maybe you don't know as much as you think you do. That the fact that I'm correcting you as much as I am on all of these issues, maybe you shouldn't be as aggressively annoying in my replies, and frankly as insulting as you are. Maybe you should think about it a little bit. Maybe you're not the smartest person in the room.
You are the most insulting person that I know of.
Because I defend it. This is why.
I put myself up in that. No, you're just a evil person, dude.
I'm evil for defending the Constitution and due process. I'm evil.
You're not. Look. You give the guy's due process, but he's not ever going to be allowed to stay in the country. Okay. So if Trump decides to work it out with El Salvador to bring this guy back, he's not going anywhere except somewhere else. Or he's going to be detained.
Should he be brought back? Should Trump try to bring him back?
I think that if Trump decides to exercise statecraft and bring the guy back and process him the correct way, meaning to some other country, I think that that's fine. But that won't be enough for you.
Should he try?
You've already said you want the guy to have you want him to have citizenship.
Hell yeah, I do.
$50 billion.
Yes. No, I didn't say billion. I said million. Hell yeah, I do.
No, I didn't say billion. I said million.
Yeah.
Well,
I heard billion. Sorry.
But you want that, right? You want
that's what I would want. But you want no. That's a lie. I've never said that. That's never been my position. So why do you say that if that's not my position?
It wouldn't hurt your feelings.
It actually would. Yes. I don't even want every legal visitor or legal resident to be a citizen. So what you do is you lie about my opinions, you make straw men, and you try to, make me out to be evil when all I'm saying, I'm being honest about what I want. Yes, I think that this person should be compensated for the evil that's been done to him, but I'm honest about what I want.
No.
And I asked you a question and you dodged it.
He's a gangbanger, dude.
So I asked you a question and you
I
asked you a question and you dodged it. I asked you a question. No, sir. Sir.
In this country, and he should never be allowed to stay here.
Sir.
So bring him back and
Dude,
process
wait. But I asked you a question. Should he be brought back?
He should be brought back, processed, and shit canned again.
Okay, so
somewhere else.
Will you call on Trump? Will you call on Trump to follow the law and bring him back?
No.
Why not?
What I will do? Shut the fuck up and let me tell you what I will do.
Because you're a hack.
Oh God, don't be a dick. I'm trying to tell you what I think is a reasonable outcome. You can tell me if you think I'm full of shit after I tell it to you, but at least let me tell you. I think Trump should try to find a path to where another country is willing to take that piece of shit in, okay? And then once that agreement is done through statecraft, right, through diplomacy, that they say, okay, we'll El Salvador, give us this guy. we'll fly him back here, or actually we'll just fly him to another place, because they don't have to do anything. They can take him from El Salvador to whatever that third country is without bringing him back to the U.S.
No, they can't. Why do
they
you
can offer?
Wait, no, they can't. No,
Yes,
they can't. Why do you think they can do that?
He had an order of removal that only
To anywhere? To anywhere? Have you ever practiced in immigration law? Do you know anything about what the you're talking about? Why are you assuming that? Why are you assuming that a formal order of removal?
Where do you think that? So what do you think? You don't think that they could diplomatically say country 2? We're not going to pick a country, right? We'll just say arbitrarily country 2. Okay, we want to fly this terror-loving fucker from your prison.
Christ. You are.
We want to send
piece
him.
Of shit.
We want to send this little piece of shit that you're holding, okay, from your prison. Put him on a plane. We'll pay for the plane. That's facilitation, and we'll send him to country number 2, and then we'll drop him off. And country number 2 says, "Yep, he can come live here." And as a matter of fact, we'll let his wife and baby come here too, and then they can all choose to go, right? And then that's it.
You don't want to hear why that's illegal, and so I don't know why I go through the
why is
the
it
process.
illegal?
Because people are entitled to due process rights, and so before you abscond with them, excuse me, sir. Let me finish. I'll let you finish.
I'll wait.
Before you, there's no order of removal to another country. There's an order of removal that can't be effectuated to El Salvador, but there's no order of removal anywhere else. And so
you don't have to have don't have to have a specific country. You're ordered deported. A final order of removal means you leave the country. Now, normally when somebody gets a final order of removal, it's back to the country of origin, okay? But there's nothing in that law that provides that you have to specify the country. So that order that exists, right, that you want to harp about, that says, oh, well, you did this wrong, and the Trump administration has conceded that it was an administrative error. They shouldn't have sent him to El Salvador. They should have sent him somewhere else. So the argument is still valid that order is a valid order, and they could work off of that and say, country 2, do you want to take this guy? And they could pay country 2 to take him, okay? And then he could go from El Salvador to country number 2, and there is no due process. It's non-justiciable. Non-justiciable. Okay, that's the way that it works.
Do you realize that, like, I could pick any random citizen who doesn't know anything about this case, and they would be more well informed than you? Like, the fact that you know certain facts and situations makes you more ill informed. That's arbitrary and capricious.
Yeah.
What's arbitrary and capricious?
You said you could pick any citizen on the street.
Yeah, anyone.
Why don't you pick a?
No. I said someone who doesn't know anything about this case is more well informed than you.
No, because they're going to have their biases based on what they've been told by their media and their friends and idiots like you.
No, I'm saying someone who doesn't even know that these countries exist. Someone who doesn't even know that Trump is president is more well informed than you. You have anti-knowledge. You're so confident.
So you're telling me that if you walked up to somebody and say, "Well, hey, I have a hypothetical situation here."
There's this country, right? This country's called El Salvador, right?
There's this guy in the U.S. who's here illegally. He was found to be able to be deported. He just can't go back to his home country. Is it okay that we send him to some third-party country?
I don't know what to say to you. I mean,
you're
hopeless.
Your postulation there is that if you set that set of facts up without mentioning anything else, that the all average people, just random people would go, "No, man, no. If you can't send him back to his home country, you can't send him somewhere else." But that's not what the order says, is it?
You're wrong. I don't know what to say. You're wrong about everything.
I'm not. Yeah. Tell me why I'm wrong. Tell me why I'm wrong.
I don't want to, because every time we do this, you don't bite the bullet, and then you move off to something else, and then you move on to something else, and that pisses me off. That pisses me off.
Look, you can't say you're wrong and then not offer your evidence.
Actually,
lawyer.
Actually, I can, because every time I try to pin you on something,
It's my channel.
every time I try to pin you on something, you immediately move the goalpost and you change the topic. Like just a second ago, you're like, you wanted to talk about the protective orders, and so like, what's the point? What's the point if you're just going to move? You're never going to concede anything. And like 5 seconds ago, you said, wait, 5 seconds ago, 5 seconds ago, you said, wait, let me finish. 5 seconds ago, you said,
and a willingness to violate.
5 seconds ago, you said that he should be brought back, but you wouldn't call on Trump to bring him back.
No, God, Jesus, you literally did not hear what I said. I said, and I told you, I said, hold on, I will tell you what I want to say. And I said, Trump, if he wanted to engage in this and clear it up, he would do some diplomacy.
Should he bring him back or not?
Third party that would find a third-party nation that would take him, and then he would send him from El Salvador to third nation. So he doesn't have to come back to the U.S.
Should he?
He doesn't have to come back to the U.S.
Should he bring him back to the United States?
You think he does, but he doesn't.
Should he bring him back to the United States?
No, he should.
Okay.
He should facilitate him being out of El Salvador. In order for him to satisfy the withholding order, right, to make everything right, he needs to send him to some third-party country. Or he should facilitate him going to some third-party country. And then if you wanted to give the guy, $2 million or $5 million so he can start his life over, that's fine. But I don't think you're going to find a third-party country that's going to want to take a gang member.
So if Trump doesn't,
you don't want to start MS-13.
So if Trump doesn't do that. So you just get laid out a pathway. You said, I don't think that he should be brought back, but there should be this other effort to get him to a third party country. If Trump doesn't do that,
so what if it takes? What if it takes 4 years?
Whoa! You just laid out a standard. Wait! I just want to lay out a standard. If Trump doesn't try to do that, will you condemn him?
No, I think the pressure will be that he will get it.
That's not what I asked you, sir. That's not what I asked you, sir. If he doesn't try to do that, will you condemn him?
No, I'm not going to condemn him. I will have issues with what happened.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm not going to condemn the president for one mistake, dude.
So if Trump is like, no. So if Trump said, yeah, I could. I don't really want to. Let him rot. You wouldn't condemn him.
I would have a problem with it.
Would you condemn him?
No, I'm not going to condemn him.
What if Trump says, I don't care what?
He can't find a place to send the guy.
He's like, I probably could do something, but I don't really want to, and I don't really care what they do to him. Would you condemn him for that?
That's a hypothetical.
Yeah, I know it's hypothetical.
Yeah, you don't answer hypotheticals, right? Lawyers don't answer hypotheticals.
That's one of the main things lawyers do, is answer hypotheticals.
No, you project. You project what you think to be the truth of a matter, okay? And then you offer evidence in support of. The guy doesn't belong in the U.S.
Light bulb, Dunkin' Donuts coffee cup, Blastoise, Nintendo DS, DualShock 3, Gatorade bottle, $10 bill, straw, speaker.
What the Hello?
Reese's Pieces.
Are you just gonna randomly throw shit out there?
Elgato prompter. Stream Deck. Printer.
What the
bedroom. Pillow. Tissues. AirPod Pro.
What the are you talking about?
I mean, this conversation is just random words. We're not even having a conversation.
No, you're... I will tell you this. I believe that we should facilitate getting him out of El Salvador, but I don't think such facilitation should ever bring him back to the United States. Period.
Okay.
How's that?
What I asked you was, if Trump doesn't do that, will you condemn him?
Well, did you can condemn Biden for anything?
Hell yeah! When he did the corrupt impeachments. First of all, this is a child's thing. It's like, what about you? What about you? What about you? But that's a child's thing. But I did actually, and people crucified me for it. I got so much shit from all these dumb libs in my replies, being like, "You shouldn't do that, man. You shouldn't condemn Biden when he does stuff because there's no." But I said I stood on business and I said these pardons are corrupt of his family and they're impeachable. I said that. I stood on business. I'm not a hack like you who won't condemn something. The standard that you lay out.
Do you think him pardoning people for crimes that weren't
why are we talking about Biden? Why are we talking about Biden? I said that was corrupt. You asked me a question. Did I condemn Biden for anything? And the answer is yes, I did. But you set your own standard, right? You set your own standard. No, he doesn't have to bring him back to. He doesn't have to try to bring him back to the United States. He has to do this little kind of third country process that I put out. I'm like, okay, great. That's your process. What if he doesn't do that? Well, you can be like, no. What did you do? That's your answer.
Well, he's got 4 years. He's got 4 years to work it out.
Okay.
Right,
bro, you're cooked. You're among the most cooked people I've ever seen.
You're right?
A well-done filet mignon.
You think you just snap your fingers and then magically it's poof, it's there, right? And if it takes
I don't even know what you're saying.
Some time limit that you expect it to be done in, then they should bring him back to the United States, right? And give him citizenship and $50 million.
Yeah, I would give him citizenship and $50 million.
Yeah, well, why don't you take the $50 million out of your pocket, and then when you have kids, let him live next door to your daughter?
Why don't you take your thumb out of your ass and go f yourself? How about that?
Well, first of all, no.
Jesus Christ. These people are like subhuman. I have no, I'm trying my best here, folks. The truth is, I'm in the trenches because it's an emergency. And so I think it's actually effective to have these pieces of shit, dumb, basically indoctrinated people to show you what the cult looks like. This is the cult, right? So they've set up their straw men. They've set up a really fucking low standard for Trump to do something minimally competent, not even bring him back to his family, send him to some random country he's never lived in, right? That's the standard. It's a very inhumane standard, especially imagine someone's like, I'm just going to send you to a country you've never lived in, you don't know about it. I'm just going to there. I'm like, I'm not going to get you back to your family. I'm not going to follow the order. And so he set himself up a super low standard. And I'm like, okay, so what if Trump doesn't meet that super low standard? I don't know. What did you do? Did you condemn Biden for anything? Brainworms, dude. And then I get told by people like Cenk Uygur in their replies, brother, the right-wing populist base, 50% of them on the Tim Pool Twitter poll said that they didn't like what was happening. We just disagree. These are the cultists, man. These are the cultists.